How coaches turn players into fleas. So what does that all mean? Okay, so if you're a baseball fan and you're watching this, or you're a baseball player and you're watching this, here's the perfect example, and it translates to all sports. So in baseball, what often happens at a young age, players a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. What happens? They get pigeonholed into just a certain amount of positions. So, they get pigeonholed at first base. They get pigeonholed at third base. They get pigeonholed, maybe as a pitcher. So it also happens in basketball. What happens when a kid is 12 years old, 13, 14 years old, and he's so much taller than everyone, and he ends up only being 6'1" or 6'2"? He gets pigeonholed into being a center, right? And then when he's finally done growing, he's 6 foot tall, 6'1", 6'2", but he just grew a little bit earlier than other players. So what I mean by coaches turning players into fleas is that there's an interesting concept, right? So if you have a cup and your cup is sitting on the table and you put a flea inside the cup, the flea can easily jump out, right? You put it back in the cup, the flea can easily jump out. You put it back in the cup a third time, the flea can easily jump out. But what happens if you put the flea inside the cup and then put a plate on top of the cup? The flea will try to jump, and it'll hit its head on the plate, drop back down. The flea will jump up, hit its head on the plate, drop back down. The flea will jump up, hit its head on the plate, and drop back down. And it'll continue going through that process. So the same thing happens when you pigeonhole your players into certain positions, or even into certain ways of thinking, certain mindsets, certain strategies. So eventually that flea that's inside that cup with the plate on top of it continues to hit its head on the plate and drop back down. He continues to hit his head on the plate and drop back down. Once you remove the plate, the flea jumps up, and all of a sudden he's limited by where that plate was, and he can't jump outside the cup. He jumps up just to the brim of the cup, and he can't get out. He jumps up just to the brim of the plate, and he can't jump out. So why would you limit the flea? Why would you restrict the flea? So what coaches are doing, turning their players into fleas, on the physical side of things, I gave you the example of someone being a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, maybe a little bit stronger at an early age. They get pigeonholed into certain positions. In every sport, they get pigeonholed into certain positions. But what happens later on down the line when they missed out on all of those years of development in the more athletic positions? Now, here's a perfect example if you don't believe me, right? There's big leaguers, there's professional players, there's MLB players. Mookie Betts is the perfect example. He takes ground balls at second base all of the time because second base is a more athletic position than playing right field. And there's countless other players that do the exact same thing. They take ground balls at shortstop or at second base because it forces them to be more athletic. They're not pigeonholing themselves into one particular position. They're not pigeonholing themselves into a limited range of motion. They're not pigeonholing themselves into a limited way of movement. But it also happens from the mental side of things. So coaches pigeonhole their players into a certain way of thinking, into a certain mindset, into a certain belief in their own capabilities, into a certain belief, into a certain attitude about their game and their performances. So instead of pigeonholing that player, why don't we release the plate and let the flea jump, let the players see what kind of possibilities that they have? So instead of just being restrictive and limiting, so you make that player believe that he can only jump as high as the edge of the plate. You make that player think he can only jump to the edge of the cup. You got to remove the barrier. You got to let them expand and broaden what their capabilities are, what their beliefs are, what their experience is going to be. Which I hope you're not one that limits them like the flea. If you're a player, understand there's a limitless amount of ways that you can go about your training, that you can go about developing on the mental side of things. There's limitless number of ways that you can develop in all areas. So, I'm not a saint. I'm not preaching that I'm a saint and that I've been a perfect coach in the past and I didn't restrict players and I didn't limit players. That's a fault of my own. And a lot of coaches have probably fallen into that same trap. I'm as guilty just as much as any other coach out there. But just understanding, removing the plate from the lid of the cup puts your players in such a better position for development, not only today, but further into the future. So anyways, I hope everyone's having an excellent day. Tevin on here, nice way to explain limiting beliefs. Thanks. Thank you, my friend, for jumping on and commenting. Anyways, comments, questions, let me know. Put them in the comment section below. If you like the video, definitely give it a thumbs up. Give it a heart, obviously, if you're coming from a place of sincerity and you love it. And share it to anyone that needs to hear it. Maybe there's a coach out there that needs to hear it. Maybe there's a player out there that needs to hear it. So share it with your friends, family, teammates, coaches, all that good stuff. So anyways, hope everyone's having an excellent day. We'll see you on the next training.